Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. I appreciate you dropping by. If you'd like to send an email, a very long email outlining a lot of issues and feelings and thoughts and attitudes that you have, I'd really love to read them. You can reach us at counselorscouch101 at mail.com. Counselorscouch101 at mail.com. I like to share sayings and ideas and, you know, evergreen type thoughts that people know about and have heard in the past and so forth. And one of them that comes up often, it came up recently. Um, I don't know who said it, but somewhere along the way, someone came up with this idea, and the quote is, "Who you are is shouting so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying." Who you are is so loud, I can't hear what you're saying. What does that mean? What's that talking about? It's referring to the presentation we make to other people. Whether we know it or not, whether we've designed it or not, we all have a presentation. Who we are stands out, is the first thing that a person knows about us, right? They take in the way we interact with the world around us and with the people that are right in front of us and with the conversation at hand, etc., etc. They take all that in and they get an impression of the person. You know, they talk about leaders. They say when everybody's listening to whatever person in the room that people are listening to, that's the leader. Whether it's the boss or not, that's the leader, right? And also, there's something to do. There's a very strong connection with physical um, attributes. In other words, often tall men, large men, big men, strong men, virile men, usually end up being the head of things just because they look like they should be the leader, right? They look like they should be a senator or a president or a mayor or whatever. That is not to say that women can't look formidable as well, but it's just especially in the past when we had our glass ceiling and all, which is hopefully breaking. That's what happened. People would look at somebody and size up pretty instantaneously whether or not they trusted that person, whether or not they would follow that person. And oftentimes it didn't have to do with what sort of philosophy or belief or attitude or goal the person had. It had to do with their presence and their personality, what they projected forward. They felt they could trust somebody because they could follow them, and then that person would make definite decisions and lead in some direction, which is better than no direction at all, particularly when you have a field of arguing folks, right? And then we have those who try to work against that natural leader. They can see it in that other person, and maybe they resent it that they don't have that presence, and so they try to oppose it in some way. Not necessarily in some terribly negative way, but maybe just undermine it a little bit here, a little bit there. I remember I did a lot of groups in the past. I may have mentioned that before. One of the first jobs I could get was working with folks who had been court ordered for various programs. And one program I had was a drug recovery program. And we had, there was like I don't know what you call it, a study book. There was a program all made out. And what we did was we passed out those copies to the members of the group, and we'd go through the material and study each lesson, one at a time, working our way through the program until you get to the end. And then at that point, you would probably have a new group to start. Ideally, if you could start the group all together and go through all the different lessons in the program and then start a new group, that would be the way to go. But we often had people coming and going at all points during that process, right? And that could throw things off. But my point was, most of the time it worked. People would come into the room. They knew what the protocol was. They knew why they were there. They knew what they had to accomplish in order to get the goal that they wanted, which is some sort of release from the court. They had to meet this requirement to complete this class. But some people, every once in a while, would come in and challenge that, right? And me, I have no need or desire or anything else to be, that head honcho, the chief. I don't like the spotlight. I would not want to be on center stage with an empty stage with the spotlight on me. I would not be comfortable. I'm really not all that comfortable doing these posts, but that's something we'll discuss later. I was asked to be here, so here I am trying to help out. But sometimes someone would come in and they would challenge it, right? And I had this one particular gentleman who came in. He was really a very damaged person. And by that I mean he was hurt emotionally at a young age, really held down and beat down and put down emotionally and verbally by a father and then a stepfather. This man was just enraged with life and people. And he had a friendly personality, by the way. He was easy to like on one level. He could be a nice guy. But that whole enragement that he carried with him would come out often, and he would challenge thoughts and he would challenge ideas in the study that we were doing. He would challenge the conversation, and he would challenge when I try to get people to focus on issues and try to see the value in it. He would challenge the value of the program, right? The problem with that, if you have the wherewithal, you usually take someone like that and you remove them from the group, not to harm them, but to take them away from destroying the group. In the particular situation that I found this particular gentleman, I was not in a place that I could do that. I was pretty much stuck with him, right? So time after time after time, he's destroying the meetings. He's just ruining them, getting people arguing, getting people off the topic of the subject of the study, and get him focused on some minor issue that he thought that he wanted to argue about and take issue with, right? It got so bad the group couldn't even start without this chaos ensuing. So eventually, I was frustrated as heck, I admit it. Tried to talk to the guy because I had to meet with everybody individually as well. And, he was very nice and apologetic when we spoke in private, but put him in front of an audience, the audience being the other group members, he just couldn't help but take that center spotlight and run with it and bring all the attention to himself. So finally I said, okay, I said this to myself. I said, this guy wants to run the group. I'm going to let him run the group. We had one of those folding tables about 6 feet long, I imagine. I generally didn't use those kind of tables, right? Because we'd sit in a circle and we'd all talk, we all can see each other like that. But I purposely got a 6-foot table, unfolded it, set it sort of like off to the side of the room, and I put the members around it, and I sat it across the room, and I said, okay, you want to run this group, go for it. And I sat there and I refused to participate. I assumed that they would calm down and focus on the material, which they did not, right? And one thing became abundantly clear really quickly. He couldn't run that group. He didn't have a clue. He knew how to disrupt a group, but he didn't know how to focus a group and keep it going anywhere. Now, I'd have been happy if he had done that on any subject that was of value to the purpose or the reason we're all in that room discussing these things. I would have been fine with it, but he didn't. And that meeting broke down quickly, and I did this for some time. I refused to participate. I said to him and in private and to myself personally, if you're going to wreck the group, then go ahead, you run it. Let's see what you can do with it, right? Eventually, the only thing that saved the group was that man disappeared, right? One day he just didn't come to a meeting, and I didn't see him after that. And apparently he had decided to go his way. He didn't need the program or whatever he did. I never did find out. I heard from him a few years later, but that's a different subject, and he wanted something from me. And I told him to go back, and I say, whoever took you out of the program, get what you need from them, because you hadn't completed the program as far as we were concerned. But my point is, we're talking about who you are shouting so loudly. That personality was so destructive. It was harmful. I couldn't see having him work for anybody doing anything, because he would tell stories of thwarting his foreman, right? He would go against the foreman. He would tell these stories in the group about the bad behaviors he would do, and he'd screw up the machinery that they were shipping to and fro. He would destroy boxes and so forth, and he would be late on purpose. He would show up late. He would deliver late. He would deliver things a day later, and on like that, just trying to cause that leader, that foreman of the group, havoc, trying to mess up his life, right? And he would do it in such a way that he seemed to get away with it. He always had an excuse for why something wasn't working. And they were apparently valid enough excuses that he kept certain kinds of employment. But he was ruining our group meeting. I'm sure he was ruining his own life in various ways. On a more subtle level, we all do something like that. We present ourselves in particular ways, and it has an effect on those around us, on the activities around us, and on the results we get from it. I've talked about this before because it really is a common theme, and it is an important one, right? If the way we present ourselves is getting us what we want from a circumstance and a situation, then all should be well and good. I would hope if that presentation is productive and whatever it is you're there to do gets done, it gets accomplished. That's fine. But if it's not working, then it probably would be beneficial to talk about it and look at what's driving it. And part of what I say when it's not working, I mean, does it work for the individual, right? The people who want to bring down the leader, do they get what they want? Most of the time they don't. They just end up more frustrated because people don't want to be around that type of personality. It doesn't benefit them anyway. In other words, if a group is trying to accomplish something and that person is not allowing that goal to be accomplished, people don't want to be around it. So they kind of shy away from it, or they go off and work on it on their own, etc. So the person who wanted the attention and wanted to be leader does not get that attention or does not get to be leader, and they are even more frustrated, and that's harmful to their self-esteem. They were reaching for something and didn't achieve it, and that just adds more resentment and more fuel to the fire of their negativity, right? The same thing if people don't speak up for themselves, if they present themselves as weak or incapable or of needing assistance, particularly needing assistance all the time. Does that get you what you want? It may get you a few dollars in a loan. It might get you a ride to the store. It might get you this, that, or the other. But how does it affect you personally, emotionally? Does it just add more negativity to your already lowered self-esteem? Does it leave you feeling even worse about yourself than when you started? You go through life becoming weaker and weaker because you're bringing yourself down. Who you are is shouting so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Are you harming yourself with that presentation overall? If someone else is being negative to the group, I can always walk away and leave them alone. Which, by the way, is a side note. I'm told that that's what several billionaires, whose names you all know, tend to do. They tend to walk away from negative people. They don't cause any trouble. They don't fight them. They don't argue against them. They don't try to straighten them out. They don't try to lead them. They don't try to do anything. They just quietly step away and don't find themselves in that person's presence in the future. That's how they handle it. There's no point in arguing with someone who just wants to argue. There's no benefit to it. So they don't. And that's who they are. That's the way they put up a boundary. They say, I'm not going to allow people to waste my time and my energy. And I do it very quietly. People who understand that and gravitate toward me and want to work together on goals and projects, etc., are more than welcome. Positive people and working in a positive direction and working together, more than welcome. Let's accomplish things. Let's do things in the world. Let's be a value and a benefit in life to others. Those who don't, just leave them alone, because we're not going to change their mind, and I don't want to change their mind. I want to let them figure out that they need to change. And it's very hard for the extremely negative people to change. It really is hard for them, because like that guy who disrupted the meeting, oftentimes they're damaged in a lot of ways. Oftentimes they've been harmed emotionally when they were younger, and that stuff sticks for a very, very long time. They got to get to the point where they say, you know, I hate who I am and I hate what I'm doing. At that point, if they can be vulnerable and identify the things that have caused them to be negative in the world, then possibly we can help them. I'm not at all certain that we can have 100% success. I imagine there have been some. That'd be great. But oftentimes we have some success, not complete success. And that in itself is a win. If the person is improving their behavior and their presentation in the world, even to some degree, that is a win, right? It benefits them and it benefits all those around them. I'm speaking to a gentleman now. I really like him. Nice guy. He has never done anything negative toward me at all. Nothing, ever. We've been talking for a good while now. But I asked him why he came and why he still continues to come. He says, I'm snippy with my family. He says, I'm sort of rude. I talk over them. I try to get them to see my point of view. I try to change their mind and like that. And he says they don't like it, right? My family doesn't like it. He has a daughter in graduate school at college. She's really smart and she's moving along in a career. She doesn't like to come home because she doesn't like to be around dad. And the only reason he knows that is because his wife tells him. His wife doesn't like it either. But see, the thing of it is, with me, he's a nice guy. He really is. And a lot of other people like him too. There's something going on that triggers him with that particular group of people. It's family members that trigger him, and he knows that. And as we talk about it and we start to examine, where did all this stuff come from? We are on a fascinating journey and conversation about how he grew up, right? And he didn't grow up in the United States. And it was a difficult country and lower income status for everybody that he knew growing up. And there was a lot of scrambling to survive and etc. And that affected a lot of people. And he developed some sort of defensive mechanisms around people in his family who tended to want to bring him down. And even though his wife isn't doing that, his daughter is not doing that, he somehow gets triggered and he's aware of it. The fact that he's aware of it, the fact that he wants to change, the fact that he came to counseling with that goal in mind and already identified, says that there's a really strong possibility that he can improve those behaviors and those relationships. And he has told me many times, he thanked me profusely many, many times. I'm not doing much of anything, but just going on the journey with him as he discovers for himself. I ask questions and point directions here and there, but he's discovering this stuff for himself. And he's figuring out his solutions for himself. And he's often told me, he says, my wife and my daughter have told me that I'm getting better. He's not saying he's perfect, but he said, they tell me I'm getting better. I'm easier to be around. I'm not as difficult. I'm not as angry. I'm not as contrary. And he says, I really want to thank you for that. But I think all the praise belongs to him. He's the one who came to take the journey. He's the one who's taking the journey. He's changing his presentation with his family, and it seems to be working. Who we are is shouting so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. It's worth thinking about, really. So the question for me today, for all you good people and you wonderful folks who write in and think about and comment on these discussions is your presentation working for you? And maybe it works mostly, and maybe in only some circumstances it doesn't, and you'd like to improve it in that area. If so, if you can identify it and figure out what it is that's not working well enough for you and what you want to change, and think about how to improve it, you can do a lot of that work all on your own. I swear to you, you can. But you have to know that that's what you're about. You have to know that's your goal. And you have to sort of practice. It's sort of like watching yourself in a mirror. We want to see what we look like to other people and decide for ourselves if that's the person we want to present ourselves as, right? One last side note before I go. I don't use profanity anymore. I used to. When I was young, I could try to keep up with everybody else, not the truck drivers and not the ladies of who knew how to swear. But I could use profanity. And one day I just decided that's not the person I want to be. That's not the person I want to present to the world. I just don't. I don't want to be that person. So I just stopped swearing right then and there. I dropped profanity from my vocabulary. And like other people that we all know about, I like to write. And they say that if you're going to be true to life, you have to write the language that people actually use. And I know that, I understand it, and it's still difficult for me to use profanity, even when I know that that defines and describes the character perfectly. Sometimes I can get over it, and a lot of times I choose not to. I'll just find some other type of character to write, because it's all about the presentation. I want to make a positive presentation, a positive influence in the world, a benefit somehow. So that's my focus, and that's what I'm trying to work on and perfect, because we're all a work in progress. Anyway, I've gone on and rambled too long. What's your presentation? How do you present to the world? Is it the person you want to present to the world? Is it who you want to be? If so, God bless you, and keep going, keep benefiting people. But if there are any refinements or any things you'd like to improve, acknowledge them, identify them, acknowledge them, set a goal, and start thinking about it. You will see that change can happen just by being aware of the desire for change. Just saying. Thanks for stopping by. I look forward to talking with you next time.